Okay, just for the sake of the film, could you give your name, please? This was 2 years ago?
Approximately, yes.
So around 2008?
Yeah.
Do you remember the time of year? And the date?
No, I don't. I don't remember, but it was about this time of year, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, like I said, I was coming back from work. And as I was driving down, this is where it was kind of foggy. It was a spooky kind of night. Foggy, and the moon was shining. I think it was a full moon almost.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, as I drove right about here, I was kind of getting drowsy at the time because I worked in Vancouver, so it was a long drive. And this is where I think I saw what I saw. And I would situate the object, for lack of a better term, approximately right here. Approximately here. But all I saw was the back of the head. I did not spot shoulders, I did not spot anything. All I saw was long hair, brown, coarse. That's the impression I got. And as I drove by, because we have a tendency to drive relatively fast on this road, I didn't see a side of a head or anything like that. I just drove by, and that's when my brain clicked in. I said, what was that? And at that point, I just used to live around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So I parked, and I shut off the car, and you can hear the dogs. Dogs are always barking like that. But that night, it was completely quiet, and there was this howl.
Mm-hmm.
This loud howl. And it felt really, really close.
It was after you got home you heard the howl.
Yes, I got home, and as I shut off the engine,
Right.
and I opened the door, there was this loud howl.
And you just, for the sake of for the report, you just lived for a little further down the hill here?
Yeah, about right over that hump there, about 2 driveways from there.
All right. Do you know the people who live here?
No, not personally.
Okay. Now, it could you don't think it could have been a man you saw standing
Oh,
there?
it could.
Yeah.
It could, but it would have been very odd to see a man at that time of night.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it must have been like 1 a.m.
Did you get the impression it was in the ditch or outside on the other side here?
That is a good question. My first impression was actually in the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
But, now that I see the site, it was most likely on the other side of those trees.
How tall do you think it was?
Oh, God. It was tall. I thought for sure it had to be taller than 6 feet for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it was like 9 feet or anything like that, but it had to be over 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought it was taller than me, and I'm 5'10". And it was considerably taller than me, so if I was to venture a guess, I'd say close to 7 feet. But it all happened so fast, right?
Correct.
And, when you're trying to recall what happened 2 years ago, it's like, But even today, as I tell the story, I can't help but have the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Oh, yeah.
And that, like I said, that howl, I just cannot really describe it. It's not a howler monkey. It's not, it almost sounded like something Hollywood would have made, and it would have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just nothing I never heard before.
How long do you think you saw it for?
Oh, God. Fraction of a second.
Right. So you were just driving by.
Roll by.
You're going from there
Yep, I just rolled by.
to there. How fast were you going at the time?
Well,
Pretty fast.
probably going a good 60 kilometers an hour.
We'll keep that out of the record.
What's the legal speed limit on the road?
And this property belongs to an R. Rambo.
Yeah.
And Bigfoot written over the sign. That's cool.
You can't help but notice that.
Yeah. Must be a bit of American influence there, because we call it sasquatch in Canada. Yeah. Well, and the best you remember, this occurred around November, or at least the fall of 2008.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I mean, I guess I should have been smarter, should have written that down, but I thought, nobody's going to believe me.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I still question really what I did see myself.
Yeah.
Did I see that, or did I see, just somebody standing there? But who would be standing in the middle of nowhere? And on around 1 o'clock in the morning in November? It doesn't make any sense,
What was your impression at the time? Did you think at the time you had seen something strange, or do you think it was just some guy walking along outside his property?
At the time, as I drove by, it was Yeah, it was my first thought is, what is he doing there?
Mm-hmm.
But then as I drove by, and then, like I said, I was pretty drowsy that night, right after a long day of work and working in Vancouver, which is a good almost 2 hours away from here. As I drove by, I realized, wait a second, this is not making any sense. And then my brain kind of caught up what I saw. I said, what was that, right? And that's when I turned into the parking lot, in our driveway, I should say. And as I turned off the engine, and I kind of opened the door, and I was hearing this howl. And these dogs, but I decided to be quiet now for half a minute, they were just completely silent. And that's when, you have that primal fear that grabs onto you. It's like, whoa, you realize you're in a situation, you say, you're tempted to go see around the corner if you really saw what you saw, or you just go inside and lock the door. And that's pretty much what I did. I went inside, locked the door, and I just observed from the windows, see if I could spot something. But I didn't. So that's about my encounter. As close as I can describe it. Well, yeah.
Did you get your impression of what color it was?
I'd say it was a relatively light brown. It was lighter than my hair color, but it looked coarse. It looked really coarse. It looked almost like a hair from a horse's tail. It looked. I wouldn't say it was kind of messy. It was not nice and clean like most humans have. It had this real thickness, coarse quality to it when you saw it. And God, I wish I could have stayed that day and realized, had a closer look at what it was. Hey, buddy.
It is weird.
I'd say the color was. Oh, that's too late. That's too late for. Yeah, almost like the typical horse brown, but with a bit of light to it.
Was this your car at the time?
No. At the time I had a black car. Similar but black.
Could you tell if it was male or female?
No, because all I saw was the back of a head. So I cannot venture basically what it was at this point.
Were you you were just going home? Like what time of night was this about?
This was late. This was past midnight. I ventured probably around 1 o'clock in the morning.
1 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
And what were the conditions that night as we were going?
Foggy
everywhere, patches?
Yeah, especially around the ditches, right? Because that's, fog has a tendency to settle there. It was foggy, the road was foggy, so that's why we weren't driving too fast, because, you get a lot of bears that do come on and across here. But this was not a bear, because bears, when you see bears, you do sometimes see bears that are brownish, but they're always on their fours, and they're always galloping across the road, and sometimes they come out of the ditch and stuff like that. So we're used to seeing bears, but this was different. This was very different, and it's hard for me to venture that it was a person, because it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, to just be standing there as I drove by, in the fog.
No rain?
No rain.
No rain at the time?
No rain. Fair amount of light, though, because of the moon. I think the moon was, if I recall, it was pretty full. If it wasn't full, it was close.
It wasn't overcast then?
No, it wasn't overcast. And it was pretty good. It was almost like a perfect setting for a Hollywood movie. Hey, puppy. Who are you?
Are you bothered by what you saw?
No, I'm not bothered by it. I mean, I must admit, whenever I recall the story, or whenever I talk about it, like I said, I do have that, that hair that stands on the back of your neck. It's like, ooh, but otherwise, no, not at all. I mean, if these creatures do exist, and my thought is they probably do, because there is a vast amount of evidence. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of historical evidence. If these creatures do exist, I think it'd be more in their nature to be curious about what goes on. And as humans are encroaching more and more into nature, it's bound to happen that we might get more and more encounters, just like the Kraken, right? The Kraken never existed until they found one. And I think the Sasquatch is the prime example of that. I think until we actually find one, people are going to deny the existence, but there's like way too much in the literature of the native history and just people and just eyewitness accounts and even something I saw that you could say, well, what was it? I don't know. But could it be? Yeah, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a question of time, I think.
Correct. Now, have you reported this to anyone besides myself
No.
since it happened?
No.
You did not report it to the police or anything like that at the time?
No. Nobody do.
Have you told anyone?
I told my immediate family.
Yeah, and what was their reaction?
Well, they just basically, like anybody else, they shrug their shoulders and, oh, well, okay, it's kind of cool. That's about it, you know. There's not much they can do about it either. You know?
You've never seen anything like this before?
No, God, no, not at all. I come from back east, so we don't have a lot of Sasquatches out there.
Yeah, whereabouts in the east?
Politicians, Quebec.
Ah. And just for the record, could you state your full name? You live now, Kevin. You live not too far from away.
Yeah, just about a kilometer or two.
Howdy.
Safety me.
Excellent. Alrighty. Just another look at the spot. I'll back her up a little bit. Now, after all this time and a couple of years you've had to think about it, do you feel that it was a Sasquatch you saw that night, or do you still think it's a possibility you saw somebody or something else?
It's hard to speculate about something like that. In my mind, you know, I would never be so bold as to venture, yes, it was a Sasquatch, but in my mind, I think, yeah, it was probably that. I find it hard to believe that I would have seen a guy just there, even a drunken guy. The hair was wrong. The hair was not typical of humans. You know, even people with dreads or messy hair, it didn't have that feel. And then, like I said, there's that howl. There's that howl that, you know, you just cannot really describe. It was loud. It was not a screech. It was not super deep, but yeah, it was not like a deep bass. It was not a high pitch. It wasn't a howling monkey or anything like that. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't a bear. Not anything that's fauna that could be around here, and I don't think it's a sound I could make myself. So that sound, although I can't really describe it, how it was done, is not something that I could reproduce, and it's something that to this day gives me the chills. It's like, yeah, maybe it's a typical fear of the unknown, because you're dealing with something that you don't know. It's probably quite reasonable to feel that first fear like that, but, you know, I just wish I could go back, I don't know, under hypnosis or something, and recall better what I saw, or anyway, what I think I saw.
Well, your report is typical of so many of them. You know, you just get a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
And you're left more wondering in your own mind what it was you saw. You know, because most people who see these things, it's fleeting glimpses for a couple of seconds until it either walks away or you pass it by. I mean, someone going by in their car. They're another half kilometer down the road before they say, "What was that?"
Yeah, that's exactly
that's the kind of thing.
Exactly
That's the kind of thing that happens all the time.
The fact that I was drowsy as well, you know, and it was late at night. I mean, I'm not kidding myself that, you know, maybe I did see things. I'm not kidding myself that it's quite possible, you know. It could be like stop coma, right?
Do you wear corrective lenses at all?
No, God no. No, I've got a 20/20 vision. I've got no problem with that. But, you know, it's all possible. You know, as if you got a scientific mindset, you have to actually admit that, yeah, your mind could have played tricked on you, but. There was too many senses involved in that, you know. You see it, then you have the feeling, and then you hear something, you know. It was not just a sight and, you know, you know, after that we did popcorn. No, there was more than one sense involved, and at that point you start asking yourself, this is interesting, you know, because if you just see something, then you can say, well, your mind played tricks. If you see and you hear something, and then you have the shiver going up your spine, and then you realize, yeah, there was something unexplained there, something my mind is not quite computing at this point. And your mind goes back and says, what if this is what it was, within the realm of what we know? So I think there's a very good possibility that I saw Sasquatch there.
Roger that. And this concludes.
Thank you.
There's a quick shot of the sign of Burns Road. It was just down this road where this alleged sighting possibly took place. I got a